give the customer a better performing web shop, but also to reserve I/O resources on our storage cluster and stuff like that. So I think we started 3.5 or 4 years ago with a side project which was comparable to Varnish with Turpentine. Any one of you are familiar with Turpentine? Anyone used it? Okay. Anyone use any other alternative full page caching system? Okay. Okay. For those of you who don't know what a full page cache is, it's a way of caching the output of your Magento web shop or any website actually, but in this case Magento web shop, to serve pages quicker to your customers or to your visiting customers. And the way that's normally done is by caching all the static outputs, but as Niels already explained, in order to have a functioning web shop, you also need to have the dynamic data on the page. For example, a shopping cart, customer-related information, certain specific dynamic data which only relates to that customer or that session. Has to be presented in a way that it doesn't come from the full page cache. So what we did in the let me see. Yeah, the common problems, we all know this. Everyone who's worked with Magento knows that Magento doesn't scale well. It can be quite slow. The entity attribute value database model is very powerful, very flexible, but it can be very slow. And the caching that's available in Magento is good, but it's not perfect. It's not, to my opinion, it's not caching as much as it could. The problem. Yeah, well, the problem is that a lot of the issues with speed for the web shops are mostly down to I/O. MySQL hitting the database, or well, the database is, I think, 80% of the trouble. And a way of speeding that up is just reserving a piece of memory and caching the static content. So what we did was actually take Varnish and take the lessons learned from Turpentine, from making hole punches, which are actually the placeholders for the dynamic blocks, and filling them in. And that system uses event observers to see whenever changes happen. It does all the cache handling for us. It talks to the Varnish layer. For example, if a product gets updated, a customer buys a product, so the stock change and the product goes out of stock or isn't available, then the observers kick in and they report that to the Varnish layer. They delete the page from entry and cause the cache warmer to reinsert that into the cache. And we also added placeholder functionality, so you could leave out blocks or pre-fill them with faked blocks like 0 items in your cart, which was actually just static HTML, with the idea that as soon as the full page cache is fully loaded, you could insert the data, the actual live data, with an AJAX call on the sideline. And that worked actually quite okay. And we even did that using local storage. So once you have a cart loaded, or a block for whatever, you could load the page from full page cache. And if you have 5 items in your cart, on the next page you would still have 5 items in your cart without having to wait for the AJAX call to come up. It looks something like this. You have pages with the placeholders over there. they're just being replaced with Ajax, like I said before. It does have a couple of downsides. Magento sessions require session warming, meaning that as soon as, for example, if you have a landing page of a certain product or a category, it takes some time for Magento to kick in a session for the customer. And some customers, when they come from some kind of external search mechanism, they come to your shop, and it would happen more than often that some customers would try to add to cart the instant they saw the page, because it came up that fast from the full page cache. And if the session's not ready for it, you would just get an empty cart. So that wouldn't work, obviously. So we had to do all kinds of workarounds by showing a session warmer the first time you hit the page, saying your session is being warmed, and 1 sec. That usually didn't take more than half a second or 1 second, but that wasn't good enough for us. Also, the dependence on Ajax calls made it vulnerable to JavaScript problems. Normally, if you have a JavaScript problem, maybe some user interaction elements don't work. Shouldn't be too much of a problem. And okay, it's tough if it's happened on your production environment, but most of the time the shop can still create revenue. But if you if you're replacing all your dynamic blocks and the JavaScript functions that are that have to do that, as soon as they fail, yeah, you're looking at a website with holes in it and data missing. Another problem was that the Ajax call, which we used to retrieve the blocks from Magento using the standard Magento functionality, like get blocks and whatnot, was still slow. Sometimes it took 300 milliseconds, but on certain certain websites with certain catalogs with a lot of attributes could take up to 3 or 4 seconds. Which means that as soon as you hit, for example, a catalog page and you wanted to see the prices, or you wanted to see if the product was still in stock or how many were in stock, you literally have to wait like 4 seconds for it to update. So yeah, and the fact that Varnish doesn't talk HTTPS also doesn't help in a time where every website has a SSL certificate. People just come to expect it. And there are ways to wrap NginX around it, for example, or some other kind of SSL wrapper. But those are, yeah, if you have an external thing that does that, it works okay, but we try to make this into a full package. So yeah, how do we optimize it? We created a new architecture. That's actually something we're working on right now. That's nearing completion. And what we're doing here is we're not only caching the pages in the full page cache. So we're not only using Varnish, but we're also using Redis to cache incoming block data in such a way that, for example, if your card is requested, the way Magento talks to Redis is it uses a write count, and if you don't mutate the shopping cart, if you don't add something or delete something from your shopping cart, the number of writes is still the same. So we abuse that information to validate or invalidate the cached objects in Redis. So what we can do now actually is give you a plain HTML output page over HTTPS, HTTP2 even, which consists of edge side included blocks. So what we actually do, we tell Varnish to retrieve the blocks from the Redis cache and inject them into the full page cache version and send that off to the client. So that has a lot of advantages. The things we did have to think about was the slow edge side include injections. Varnish has a tendency to request every edge side included block as a single request, and that was something we didn't want. So we wrote a wrapper around that could request all the blocks at the same time and just inject them much quicker into the page. Also, a thing we did was use session warming. Well, actually, we abused the way Magento uses the form keys. As soon as a session is created and it has a form key, it's valid for Magento. But since we're on the side controlling the Redis cache, we can just insert a form key using the same function, using the same kind of code, but then in a C implementation, to inject a form key directly into Redis. So at the time a customer hits the full page cache for the first time, he already has a session because we injected it at the moment that the blocks were being inserted using the edge side includes. So Magento just thinks, oh, okay, I see a form key, I see a session, it's all good. Another thing that was actually that's something we're still working on is the Redis cache latency, because we're so dependent on Redis. It has to be as low as possible. So right now it's only working on a local Redis instance for each front-end server. But we're trying to figure out ways of dealing with that. It's still a work in progress, and obviously Varnish has limitations as well. The advantages of this all is, like I said before, no JavaScript dependencies. So even if your JavaScript breaks, the full page cache system still works. And since you're not doing any manipulations on the client side using Ajax, the document object model isn't touched. And for example, I don't know if anyone uses jQuery to bind any user interaction events to stuff, but those in the old version, since we were updating blocks, those binds would often be destroyed, and we often have to either reset the binds or do something else with it. This version, since all the output is just plain HTML when it hits the web server of the web client, there's no problem with JavaScript or the document object model whatsoever. And also a feature that we wanted to have was graceful degradation. If at any point something in the entire stack fails, then it just falls back as a reverse proxy for the Apache front-end web server. Yeah, and this gives the advantage that only you're converting traffic, so only people adding stuff to the cart or doing something else that actually changes the session data. Those are the customers that cause CPU load and disk storage load. So yeah, customers, or especially search engines and other kinds of indexers and crawlers that will want to crawl your website, they don't have nearly as high as performance impact anymore as they used to have. Future plans include implementation of Magento 2. We were happy to see that the way that Magento 2 has the Varnish support built into the core resembled a lot of the way that we were doing it. So it's actually a lot of block replacement. You can see Magento 2 doing all kinds of Ajax calls, XHR requests to get the dynamic data and to fill it in. And another feature would be front-end hole punching. So normally the way we do it now is if someone wants to create a hole punch, wants to make his shopping cart a dynamic block or his welcome block or whatever, you would have to specify it in an XML file, unsetting the block, replacing it with a placeholder and stuff like that. And we want to have that fully automated for the future. So it's a short presentation. It's a simple concept, but it's it has quite some technology behind it. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Well, I'd like to thank today's host, Unify, for this event. I've been to other Meet Magentos in the Netherlands. and other Magento meetings. And I really think this is a great step forward for the fine talent that is available in Serbia to get in contact with the greater Magento community. So I applaud them for their effort.
Thank you. Okay, thanks.